Hey everyone, following Gamescom 2024, we now have more information on Starfield's expansion, Shattered Space, which according to Starfield and Bethesda lead creative producer Tim Lamb, will be a return to form for Bethesda in terms of narrative-driven content handmade for players. Lamb stated in an interview with Gaming Boulevard that Shattered Space is an answer to a lot of player requests for narrative-driven content at a personal, impactful level. And of course, the highly requested land exploration vehicle, the Rev 8, which was also released post-Gamescom, has already warmed up people's interest again in picking up Starfield. In this video, we'll be going over both the Rev 8 patch for Starfield and the details that have been revealed on House Va'ruun. As one journalist noted, ever since I stepped foot in the Va'ruun embassy as part of a quest in Starfield, I've been dying to learn more about the faction. I mean, we've also made a lore video here on this very channel that spans over an hour long, just covering what we do know, and theorized about arguably the most mysterious and perhaps the most interesting group of people in the universe of Starfield, and undoubtedly a lot of other people who played Starfield feel the same burning curiosity we do, so let's get to it. According to someone who previewed the Shattered Space DLC, Bethesda wanted to remind all of us that space is scary. And as we've covered from the preview trailer, it seems we were on point about some of our theories as to how the DLC would make such scariness happen, or at least start. There couldn't be a more fitting faction to capture the fact that space is scary, as the team puts it. After all, there's always been an unsettling edge to the zealots, who would sometimes pop up on planets and attack me with their own distinctive weapons. How will come to be on their own planet also dials into the mystery aspect, with the story of DLC set to explore what happens when the search for knowledge goes too far. When a secret experiment with grav drive technology is set to go terribly wrong, the result is a massive tear in the fabric of space-time, leaving a vortex in its wake. What's amazing or exciting is we'll be arriving on Va'ruun Kai in the middle of the aftermath shortly after it's all happened. Residents have gone missing, different groups are vying for power, and it will ultimately be up to us to decide the fate of House Va'ruun. Due to the experimentation's fallout, we will encounter gravity anomalies in the world, and the vortex will bring across creatures in terrifying ambushes, resulting in combat that will amp up aggressiveness from the fights we're used to in Starfield. The journalist goes on to say, I only got to see glimpses of the planet and its capital city of Dazra, which is said to be unlike anything in the base game. Everything looks vibrant and very alien, with curious architecture and new enemies to face. So we basically already have the introduction of the Shattered Space plot here already. Grav drive technology experiment goes wrong, a vortex occurs in the fabric of space-time, and then somehow we arrive on the secret and isolated House Va'ruun home planet of Va'ruun Kai. Not only that, but we'll be able to see and explore the famed capital city of Dazra, which we saw in the trailer as well, which will have its own unique architecture that's not at all like the human settlements we see in Neon, New Atlantis, Hope, and so on, which we've gathered from the official trailer again. In an interview with Gaming Boulevard, creative producer Tim Lamb revealed that the DLC is going to take players to a brand new sector of space, one that hasn't been explored in the main game, which squashed speculation on Serpentis being modified in the base game for Starfield to be the home system for House Va'ruun. Furthermore, we can expect to uncover a deep and complex history and dive into the present culture, motives, and power struggles of House Va'ruun. The mention of power struggles repeatedly here is very notable, as we've theorized in our lore video based on the available information found in the House Va'ruun embassy on Jameson, that there's assumingly a primogenital hierarchy descending from founder Jinan Va'ruun down to Anasco Va'ruun, and that in such an environment, political frictions between different ideals or groups following necessary structural changes, such as the gap between zealots and non-zealots in such a warlike society after the founder's death and the Serpent's Crusade, could have led to civil strife, which would also explain the eerie silence that the House Va'ruun ambassador that we can meet, Kazric Balmor, has been dealing with from his superiors. Curiously enough, or perhaps because of spoilers, Lamb has left Andrage's involvement in Shattered Space's DLC up in the air, but that her being an agent or former agent of House Va'ruun was certainly a consideration in the development of the storyline for the DLC. Personally, I don't see why she wouldn't be part of this, because again, as a companion, but also as a character, she is or was House Va'ruun. She came from House Va'ruun Kai, so she may not know the way back home, but I would imagine they wrote something for her in the upcoming DLC. Otherwise, that'd be kind of a miss. Lamb continues to say that House Va'ruun and their belief in the Great Serpent play a central role in this DLC. The faction has always been on the fringes, with their faith and practices often misunderstood or outright feared by others in the galaxy. In the DLC, players will be able to explore their sacred sites, uncover the origins of their beliefs, and see how the Great Serpent influences their decisions. When Lamb said this part about sacred sites, my initial reaction was that these could be another gameplay system or mechanic for us to interact with as players, sort of similar to the Starborn system. And interestingly, in the same interview, Tim Lam also confirms that Bethesda is adding new in-game mechanics or systems to Starfield with Shattered Space, along with highly aggressive creatures for jump-scare ambushes. Examples include new zero-gravity combat scenarios, new ship customization options, new tools and gadgets for exploration in the game. I wouldn't be surprised if there's new weapons as well, or just like new powers potentially, based on what we know about House Faroon and maybe the Great Serpent. Additional information on Shattered Space as a DLC, such as size, content type, and integration in the base game has also been revealed. For example, the DLC area will be quote-unquote substantial, supposedly densely packed with content. Bethesda has apparently focused on making sure every corner of the new area feels alive and has something for players to discover, including hidden side quests, unique encounters, or beautiful landscapes. Lamb added that it's less about sheer size this time and more about the depth of experience in the Starfield DLC, as opposed to a lot of people's issues and experiences with the base game where it felt as wide as an ocean but as deep as a puddle. While the DLC is designed with more experienced players in mind, Bethesda has also made sure that the Shattered Space story and challenges in the story are still appropriately scaled for invested players, and that the DLC storyline has been naturally integrated into the base game for a more organic approach and exploration for the newer players. In terms of music, there will of course be new ambience and audio added to Shattered Space as well. We also get a confirmed release date for Shattered Space, which will be on the 30th of September 2024. If you have the premium edition on Starfield, then you should already have access to the DLC without paying another $30 for the DLC on Xbox or PC. Lastly, for this video, we'll be going over the Rev 8 patch notes for Starfield, which actually has a really good amount of great changes and fixes to the game, which I think a lot of people will be excited by. So for example, frame rate target, you can now choose between 30, 40, 60, or an uncapped frame rate on VR displays, which is great. Prioritize, you can now prioritize between visuals and performance while trying to maintain the frame rate target. If you're choosing a frame rate target of 60 or above, we recommend changing the performance. Prioritizing visuals, keep the highest resolution while maintaining full detail for special effects, lighting, and crowds, and prioritizing performance, of course, does exactly what you think. Both modes may adjust internal resolution dynamically when scenes or action gets heavier as well. VSync can also be toggled on and off now. Of course, features-wise, they added the new Rev 8 vehicle, which is actually pretty fun to use. They also added Xbox Series S performance options. They added more UI fixes and improvements, general performance and stability improvements. Of note here that you will see later on in these patch notes is going to be a fix to photo mode in ships, and of course ship lights. There's this terrible interaction with the lighting in ships if you wanted to do photo mode in ships that essentially made the photo darker, so they addressed that as well. There's a whole slew of kind of fixes to a lot of gameplay issues or visual issues with reloading animations, and of course we have some skill adjustments to things like Gravity Well from the Starborn skill tree, where the Gravity Well does no longer pulls NPCs into the ships in the chop shop. And of course, ships. Of course, there's just going to be more fixes to ships. Ship decoration, ship builder fix. There was an issue where ship docking bridges remained extended for whatever reason after you flew away. Graphics wise, they also fish an issue which would cause the frame generation setting to be turned off if you're going to use DLSS. They also addressed an issue with upscaling that could cause visual artifacts on planets when you're viewing it from space. And helmets will finally toggle correctly for companions who are downed in photo mode. UI wise, and this is a big sticking point for a lot of people with this game, if you're not going to use mods, and I do recommend using mods. Address an issue with the ship and inventory menus on 21:9 resolutions. Fix an issue with how large carry capacity is displayed in inventory with large font enabled, which is great, but I think there could be more here. Address an issue with how the cue ball and ping pong ball display. And again, flood lamps, decoration items will now correctly toggle off and on at outposts featuring a power source. There's a few more changes I won't really go over. They're just really minor, but it seems to be every 6 weeks or so that Starfield is steadily improving at a decent pace, and Shattered Space might actually breathe some life into the game, where a lot of people are kind of just waiting on the lore, especially myself, and that's it really. We'll of course be lore hunting yet again, like last year when Starfield came out. We're actually really looking forward to how many things we got wrong or right with House Faroon lore, and definitely as of now, I'm most curious about what or who exactly the Great Serpent could be, given what we know from the base game lore in regards to Starborn and the Unity. Until next time though, stay safe friends, and see you out there in the Starfield.